They laughed when the gate slammed shut behind her, the sound of metal echoing through the empty training yard like a final sentence. The words still rang in her ears, sharp and ugly, dripping with cruelty. "Get ripped apart, BTCH. The bullies stood on the other side of the fence, 5 of them, grinning like they'd already won, like they were watching a show they'd paid for. The air smelled of rust, dirt, and animal sweat. The K9 pen stretched wide around her, tall fencing topped with barbed wire, the ground torn up by claws and boots. Low growls rolled from the shadows as shapes began to move, big ones, muscular, hungry. They had made sure of that. For weeks they'd bragged about it, whispered about it in the locker rooms and hallways, laughing about how the dogs hadn't been fed properly, how they were trained to attack, how no one ever came back out of that pen the same. The girl in the middle of it all, Elena Ward, stood still. No screaming, no begging, no tears. Her hands were clenched, but her back was straight, her breathing controlled. That calm alone unsettled them, but they didn't notice. They were too busy enjoying the moment, too convinced that power always looked loud. Elena had learned a long time ago that silence was more dangerous than noise. The bullies didn't know her story. They thought she was just another quiet transfer student, the one who kept her head down, wore plain clothes, and never fought back. They thought they'd broken her when they started small. Shoves in the hallway, insults whispered just loud enough to sting, notes left on her desk with crude drawings and worse words. Teachers looked the other way. Cameras never seemed to catch the right angles. The bullies escalated because they always do when no one stops them. They cornered her behind the gym. They dumped her backpack into a trash bin. They told her she didn't belong here, that people like her should know their place, and when fear didn't satisfy them anymore, they wanted spectacle. That's when the K9 pen came up. That's when they decided to turn cruelty into entertainment. The dog stepped forward now, muscles shifting under coarse fur, teeth flashing in the sunlight. A deep bark shattered the air, and one of the bullies flinched despite himself. "That's right," another one muttered, forcing a laugh. "Get her." Elena slowly raised her head. Her eyes weren't wide with terror. They were sharp, focused, almost disappointed. She took one step forward, boots crunching on gravel. The dogs stopped. Every single one of them. Their growls faded into uneasy huffs, tails stiffened, ears tilted. The bullies froze. "What the hell?" one of them whispered. Elena exhaled calmly and spoke, her voice low but steady. "Sit." The word cut through the air like a command etched into stone. 4 massive K9s sat down at once, perfectly aligned, eyes locked on her face. Silence slammed into the yard harder than any scream ever could. The laughter died instantly. One bully grabbed the fence. "That's not possible," he said. "They're attack dogs." Elena turned slowly, finally looking at them, really looking at them, and for the first time they felt small. "They're working dogs," she corrected. "And they don't take orders from cowards." The dogs stayed seated, disciplined, alert, waiting. Elena walked forward past them, placing a calm hand on the head of the largest one. The animal leaned into her touch like it trusted her with its life, because it did. Because she wasn't just some random girl thrown into a pen. She was the reason this place existed in the first place. They didn't know her last name meant something in this town. They didn't know the training facility was built with her family's money, that her mother had designed the behavioral conditioning program, that her father had trained military K9 units before any of these bullies were born. They didn't know Elena had grown up here, that she'd fed these dogs by hand, trained them with patience instead of fear, earned loyalty instead of forcing obedience. They thought starved meant savage. They thought hunger erased discipline. They were wrong. Hunger sharpened focus. And loyalty didn't disappear just because someone tried to weaponize it. Elena stopped inches from the fence. The bullies backed away instinctively, hearts pounding, faces pale. "You wanted a show," she said quietly. "So watch." She snapped her fingers once. The dog stood, not aggressively, not wildly, but with controlled power, one step closer to the fence. The bullies panicked. Someone shouted to open the gate. Someone else tripped over their own feet. Fear spread through them like a virus. Elena leaned closer, her eyes never leaving theirs. "You thought silence meant weakness," she said. "You thought because I didn't fight back, I couldn't." She paused, letting the moment stretch until it hurt. "This place belongs to me. These dogs answer to me. And every camera you thought was broken?" She nodded toward the corner of the yard, where a red light blinked steadily. "They're live." Reality crashed down on them all at once. The power they'd felt moments ago evaporated. They weren't predators anymore. They were exposed, trapped by their own cruelty. Elena raised her hand, palm open, down. The dogs lay flat instantly, disciplined and calm. She turned away from the fence, signaling for the gate to be opened from the control panel across the yard. It slid open with a mechanical whine. She walked out without running, without looking back, the dogs following her like shadows. The bullies collapsed against the fence, shaking, breathless, knowing something worse than punishment was coming, truth. As Elena disappeared toward the main building, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Consequences were already on their way, and this was only the beginning. If you're still watching right now, understand this. Stories like this remind us that quiet strength is real, that bullies never see the storm coming, and that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. If you want more intense, emotional stories where the underestimated rise and justice hits hard, subscribe to the channel now, because what happens next only gets darker, smarter, and far more satisfying.